A poor janitor paid for a billionaire's coffee, unaware she was interviewing him for a CEO position. Before we start the story, comment below and let us know where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. Elena Rodriguez, a 28-year-old woman in a worn janitor uniform, stood at the counter of Morningside Cafe, counting her last $5. Her shift at Donovan Tech Tower had just ended after 8 hours of scrubbing floors and emptying trash bins. She was exhausted, invisible to the world of executives who walked past her without a second glance. "One small black coffee, please," she said to Marie, the cafe owner. Behind her, a man cleared his throat. Elena turned to see a casually dressed man in his mid-30s, wearing dark jeans and a simple gray shirt that somehow looked expensive. He had intelligent eyes and an air of quiet confidence. "Car declined," Marie said apologetically to him. "Want to try another one?" The man patted his pockets and smiled sheepishly. "Left my wallet in my other jacket." "It's fine, I'll just skip it today." Elena looked at the 5 crumpled dollar bills in her hand. It was all she had until Friday's paycheck. She needed bus fare. She needed groceries. Her mother was waiting at home, sick with cancer, needing medication. But something about the moment made her speak. "I'll pay for his coffee," Elena said suddenly. Both Marie and the man looked at her in surprise. "You don't have to do that," the man said, his eyes studying her with unexpected intensity. Elena met his gaze steadily. She was used to being invisible, but this man was actually seeing her. Really seeing her. "I know I don't have to," she replied. "I want to." She placed her $5 on the counter. "One small black coffee for me, and whatever he's having." "Large cappuccino with an extra shot," Marie said. Already moving to prepare the drinks, the man stepped closer. "That's incredibly kind, especially when—" He glanced at her uniform, not with judgment, but with something else. Recognition, perhaps. "Thank you. I'm Marcus." "Elena," she replied, taking her coffee when Marie handed it to her. Marcus extended his hand, and when their fingers touched during the handshake, something electric passed between them. His grip was firm, warm, and he held on just a moment longer than necessary. "I won't forget this, Elena," Marcus said softly, his voice carrying a weight she didn't understand. She smiled tiredly. "It's just coffee. Sometimes coffee is more than coffee," he replied mysteriously. Elena left the cafe, unaware that the man watching her through the window was Marcus Donovan, billionaire CEO and owner of the very building where she worked as a janitor. Unaware that he had been observing her exceptional work ethic for weeks. Unaware that she had just passed the first test of an interview she didn't know she was taking, and completely unaware that paying for a stranger's coffee with her last $5 was about to change her entire life. Marcus stood inside the cafe, still holding the cappuccino she'd bought him, watching Elena walk down the street toward the bus stop. His mind was already made up that he pulled out his phone and called his assistant. "David, I found her. The person we've been looking for. Start preparations immediately." "Who is she?" David asked on the other end. Marcus smiled, still watching Elena's retreating figure. "Someone who just taught me that character reveals itself in the smallest gestures. Someone who gave when she had nothing. Someone who's about to discover that kindness has consequences she never imagined." He took a sip of the coffee Elena had bought him. It tasted like opportunity, and for Elena Rodriguez, walking home exhausted and broke, completely unaware of what was coming, that $5 cup of coffee was about to become the most valuable investment she'd ever made. What happened next would shock everyone who knew her story. Elena walked the 43 blocks home. Her feet ached, but she'd saved $2 in bus fare. Every penny mattered now. She unlocked the door to their small apartment on the 3rd floor of a building that had seen better decades. The paint peeled in the corners. The heater worked only when it felt generous. But it was clean. Elena made sure of that. "Mija," her mother's voice called from the bedroom. "I'm home, Mama," Elena replied, setting down her bag and moving to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Maria Rodriguez appeared in the doorway, wrapped in a faded robe. At 58, she should have been vibrant, traveling, enjoying life. Instead, cancer had stolen her color, her energy, her future. But not her spirit. Never that. You walked again, Maria said, shaking her head. Elena, you work all night and then... Exercise is good for me, Elena interrupted with a smile. She cracked eggs into a pan. Besides, the morning is beautiful. Her mother sat at the small kitchen table, watching her daughter with knowing eyes. You were supposed to be running a company by now, not running away from bus fare. Elena's hands paused for just a moment before continuing. Things change, Mama. Tell me again, her mother said softly. Tell me what happened. You never talk about it anymore. Elena plated the eggs and toast, sitting across from her mother. The morning light filtered through their threadbare curtains, illuminating dust motes that danced in the air. You know what happened, Elena said quietly. I know, but you need to remember you're more than this uniform. Elena looked down at her navy shirt with its embroidered name tag. She took a breath. 3 years ago, she was different. Elena Rodriguez, MBA graduate from Stanford, top of her class. Her father, Richard Rodriguez, owned a successful import business. She was being groomed to take over, to expand internationally, to build an empire. She remembered the office with floor-to-ceiling windows, her own desk, her business suits tailored to perfection, the confidence that came from knowing exactly where her life was headed. Then Thomas Castellano happened, her father's business partner, the man Richard trusted like a brother. Thomas had been embezzling for years, creating shell companies, falsifying records, stealing millions. When the authorities discovered the fraud, they found Richard's signature on every document. Thomas had forged them all, but the evidence pointed to her father. The trial was brutal. The media painted Richard Rodriguez as a master criminal. Their assets were frozen. Legal fees consumed everything they hadn't already lost. Elena watched her father age a decade in 6 months. She watched the light leave his eyes as his reputation crumbled. She watched him lose the business he'd built from nothing. And then she watched him die. Heart attack. The doctors called it natural causes. Elena called it a broken heart. 1 week after the funeral, her mother received her cancer diagnosis. Stage 3. Everything that remained after legal fees went to medical bills. Elena liquidated her own savings, sold her car, moved them to this apartment. She applied for every position she could find, but Richard Rodriguez's daughter was unemployable. No one wanted the scandal, except for cleaning services. They didn't care about her last name. So Elena became invisible. She worked nights when no one could see her. She scrubbed floors in buildings where she once would have walked as an equal. And she took care of her mother, because Maria Rodriguez was all she had left in this world. You're thinking about him again, her mother said, pulling Elena from her memories. I think about what I lost, Elena admitted. My father, our life, my future. Maria reached across the table and gripped her daughter's hand. You didn't lose your future, Mija. You just had to take a different path to reach it. Elena smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Mama, I clean toilets for a living. That's not a path. That's survival. You're 28 years old with an MBA from Stanford. You speak 3 languages. You understand business better than most executives. This, Maria gestured to the uniform. This is temporary. Your father's name will be cleared someday. The truth always emerges. And until then, Elena asked, until then, you keep your dignity. You keep your intelligence. You keep being the woman who pays for a stranger's coffee, even when she has nothing. Her mother's eyes gleamed. Yes, Marie called me. She always does. Elena laughed softly. It was just $5. It was character, Maria corrected. And character, Mija, is the only thing poverty can't touch unless you let it. Elena cleaned up their breakfast dishes, kissed her mother's forehead, and retreated to her small bedroom. She changed out of her uniform and into old sweatpants. But before sleeping, she did what she did every morning. She opened her laptop, her last remaining possession from her previous life, and read business journals, market analyses, tech industry reports. She studied merger strategies and innovation frameworks. She kept her mind sharp because somewhere deep inside, beneath the exhaustion and the resignation, a small flame still burned. The flame that whispered, "This isn't over." Elena fell asleep with those words echoing in her mind, unaware that someone else was thinking the exact same thing about her. Marcus Donovan stood in his penthouse apartment, 43 floors above the city, staring at the business card in his hand. He hadn't given it to Elena. He'd wanted to, but something held him back. Timing mattered. "You're brooding again," Davidson said, entering with 2 cups of coffee. At 32, David had been Marcus's assistant and closest friend for 7 years. He knew when his boss was plotting something. "I'm thinking," Marcus corrected, accepting the coffee. "About the janitor who bought you coffee?" Marcus smiled. "Her name is Elena Rodriguez. You had her investigated?" David raised an eyebrow. "I had her background checked. There's a difference." Marcus moved to the window. The city sprawled below him, millions of lives intersecting without ever truly connecting. "Do you know who her father was?" David pulled out his tablet, scrolling through information. "Richard Rodriguez, import business owner, died 2 years ago after fraud allegations." "Allegations that were false," Marcus said. "Thomas Castellano took a deal with prosecutors last month. Confessed to everything. Richard Rodriguez was innocent." "Does she know?" "Not yet. The media hasn't picked it up. Castellano's confession was buried in legal paperwork." Marcus turned from the window. "Elena Rodriguez has an MBA from Stanford. Graduated top 5%. She was being groomed to run her father's empire. Now she cleans my building." David studied his boss. "And you're interested because she spent her last $5 on a stranger's coffee. Because I've been watching her work for 3 weeks, and she approaches every task with precision and pride. Because she reorganized our entire filing system on the 14th floor without being asked, and I noticed it improved efficiency by 30%. You've been watching the janitors?" David asked carefully. Marcus sat on the leather sofa, his expression serious. "We need a CEO for the AI ethics division. Someone brilliant, principled, innovative. How many candidates have we interviewed?" 43. "And how many were authentic?" David sighed. "None. They're all polished, rehearsed, saying exactly what they think you want to hear." "Exactly." Marcus leaned forward. "Every candidate walks into this building knowing they're being evaluated. They perform. They posture. They present a carefully constructed version of themselves. But what if we evaluated someone who had no idea they were being considered?" "You want to hire Elena Rodriguez," David said slowly. "I want to know if she's as impressive as she seems. I want to see how she handles complex problems, how she thinks, how she leads when she believes no one is watching. That's unorthodox." "I built a $10 billion company by being unorthodox," Marcus replied. "Traditional hiring processes give us traditional results. I need someone extraordinary." David set down his tablet. "What if she's not interested?" "Everyone is interested in opportunity. The question is whether she'll recognize it when it comes." Marcus stood, his decision made. "Clear my schedule for the next 2 weeks. Night shifts." "You're going to work nights?" "I'm going to observe. Elena Rodriguez doesn't know who I am. She thinks I'm just another employee. That gives me the perfect opportunity to see the real her." David shook his head with a mixture of admiration and concern. "You realize this could backfire completely? If she finds out you've been deceiving her." "I'm not deceiving her. I'm creating an authentic interview environment. The most important leadership qualities reveal themselves when people think no one important is watching." "And if she fails your test?" Marcus looked out at the city again, remembering the way Elena had met his eyes in the coffee shop. No deference, no calculation, just simple human kindness. "She won't," he said quietly. David gathered his materials. "For what it's worth, I think you're either brilliant or insane." "Those aren't mutually exclusive," Marcus replied with a slight smile. After David left, Marcus returned to the window. Somewhere in this vast city, Elena Rodriguez was sleeping after a long night of work she was overqualified for. She was brilliant, resilient, and completely unaware that her life was about to change. Marcus had built his empire by recognizing potential others overlooked. He'd started with nothing, a kid from a broken home who'd coded his first app in a public library. He understood what it meant to be underestimated, and he understood that true character revealed itself in adversity, not advantage. Elena Rodriguez had faced more adversity than most people could survive. Yet she still paid for strangers' coffee with money she desperately needed. That told Marcus everything he needed to know about her heart. Now he needed to discover her mind. He pulled out his phone and texted David, "Start tomorrow night. I want to be there for her entire shift." The response came immediately. "You're definitely insane. I'll make the arrangements." Marcus smiled. In 48 hours, Elena Rodriguez's real interview would begin. She just wouldn't know it. Elena pushed her cart down the empty corridor of the 15th floor. It was 1:30 a.m. on a Tuesday, and Donovan Tech Tower was silent except for the hum of computers and the soft squeak of her cartwheels. She developed a rhythm over the past 2 years. Start at the top floors where executives worked, move downward through middle management, finish in the lobby. Each floor told a story through what people left behind: half-empty coffee cups, forgotten documents, personal photos on desks. She was emptying a trash bin when she heard footsteps. "Working late?" a familiar voice said. Elena turned. Marcus stood in the doorway of a conference room, wearing dark jeans and a navy sweater. He looked tired but alert, holding a laptop under one arm. "I could ask you the same thing," she replied, continuing her work. She'd seen him 3 times since the coffee shop incident, always late at night, always looking like he'd been working for hours. "Deadline," Marcus said, gesturing vaguely with his laptop. "Product launch next month." Elena nodded, moving to the next office. Marcus followed, leaning against the doorframe. "Do you ever get tired of it?" he asked. "Working while everyone else sleeps?" She sprayed cleaner on a desk, wiping it in smooth, circular motions. "Someone has to do it. Might as well be me." That's a practical answer, not an honest one. Elena paused, looking at him. There was something disarming about Marcus. He didn't talk to her like she was invisible. He asked real questions and waited for real answers. Honestly, she resumed cleaning. "I like the quiet. During the day, buildings like this are full of noise and chaos. At night, I can think." "What do you think about?" "Business," she said before she could stop herself. Marcus's eyebrows lifted. "Business?" Elena felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I studied it. Before this." She gestured to her uniform. "What specifically?" She shouldn't engage. She should finish her work and move on. But something about the genuine curiosity in his eyes made her continue. "Right now, I'm thinking about the acquisition proposal on that whiteboard in conference room B." She pointed down the hall. "The numbers don't account for market volatility. The projected ROI is optimistic by at least 15%. Marcus stared at her. "You read the acquisition proposal?" "I see things," Elena said quietly. "I don't mean to, but when you're invisible, people forget you can read what they leave out in the open." "And you think the proposal is flawed?" Elena bit her lip, then nodded. "The target company's primary revenue stream is advertising dependent. With the current economic climate and privacy regulations tightening, that revenue model is vulnerable. The proposal doesn't address contingency planning." Marcus was silent for a long moment. Then he walked down the hall to conference room B. Elena hesitated before following. He stared at the whiteboard covered in financial projections and strategic notes. "Show me." "I'm not supposed to." "Show me what you see," Marcus interrupted gently. Elena set down her cleaning supplies. She approached the board, her finger tracing the numbers. "Here, the revenue projection assumes current advertising rates remain stable. But 3 major platforms just announced algorithm changes that will reduce ad visibility by 30%. That directly impacts the target company's client retention." She moved to another section. "And here, the integration timeline assumes no cultural resistance between companies. But the target company has a startup mentality, while Donovan Tech is corporate structured. That culture clash will slow integration by at least 6 months, adding millions in transition costs." Marcus watched her, his expression unreadable. Elena suddenly felt exposed. She'd said too much, revealed too much. "I should get back to work," she said, stepping away from the board. "Wait." Marcus's hand touched her arm lightly. The contact sent an unexpected current through her. "Where did you study business?" "It doesn't matter anymore." "It matters to me." Elena met his eyes. They were dark, intense, focused entirely on her in a way that made her heart race. "Stanford." MBA program. But that was another life. What happened? The question was soft, not intrusive. It invited confidence rather than demanding it. My family lost everything, Elena said simply. I needed work. This was available. You're overqualified to be emptying trash bins. I'm exactly qualified to do whatever job puts food on my table and pays for my mother's medication. There was no bitterness in her voice. Just fact. Marcus pulled out his phone, tapped something, then looked back at her. What if I left a problem on my desk tomorrow night? A business problem. Would you look at it? Why? Because I think you see things other people miss. And I'm curious what you'd do with a real challenge. Elena should say no, should maintain her boundaries. But the way he looked at her, like she mattered, like her mind mattered, awakened something she'd buried for 2 years. Okay, she whispered. Marcus smiled. It transformed his face, making him look younger, more approachable. Thank you, Elena. He left the conference room, leaving her standing alone with her cleaning cart and a strange flutter in her chest. The next night, Elena found a manila folder on a desk in Marcus's usual work area. No name on it, just a sticky note. What would you do? Inside was a business scenario, a company facing disruption from new technology, traditional revenue streams collapsing, board divided on strategy. They had 6 months before insolvency. Elena read it during her break. Then she read it again. At 4 a.m., before leaving, she wrote her analysis on a notepad. Not just her opinion, a complete strategic framework. She outlined 3 phases of transformation, identified which assets to liquidate and which to leverage, and created a timeline for execution. She left it on the desk and went home, heart pounding. She just revealed herself completely to a man she barely knew. Marcus found Elena's analysis at 6 a.m. when he arrived at his office. David was already there, reviewing overnight emails. Read this, Marcus said, handing him the notepad. David scanned the pages, his expression shifting from casual interest to focused attention. This is comprehensive. Who wrote it? Elena Rodriguez. The janitor wrote a complete corporate restructuring strategy. David looked up. Marcus, this is exactly what Harrison Consulting proposed last month. Except she identified 2 additional revenue streams they missed entirely. Marcus smiled. I know. You gave her the global tech scenario. That's a real client case. I changed the name. But yes. David set down the notepad carefully. She just created a $1 million consulting analysis during her cleaning shift. She sees what others miss because she's actually paying attention. When you're invisible, people underestimate you. That's her advantage. Marcus picked up the notepad, running his finger over her handwriting, neat, confident, precise. Set up another test. Over the next week, Marcus orchestrated encounters. He left strategic documents with deliberate errors. He engaged Elena in conversations about leadership, ethics, market disruption. Each interaction revealed new layers of her intelligence and character. One night, he found her in the executive kitchen at 2 a.m., making coffee. She looked exhausted but determined. Long night? He asked, entering the space. Elena turned, a slight smile appearing. Every night is long when you clean 40 floors. I've been thinking about what you said, about culture clash in acquisitions. Marcus poured himself coffee, standing closer to her than strictly necessary. He noticed she didn't step away. How would you minimize that? Are you asking for academic theory or practical application? Practical. Elena leaned against the counter, coffee cup warming her hands. Start with the employees, not the executives. The people doing the actual work understand the real culture, not the version written in corporate value statements. Interview them. Understand their fears. Address them before integration begins. Most acquisition strategies focus on systems integration first. Most acquisitions fail because of cultural rejection, not technical incompatibility, Elena countered. You can merge databases in a week. You can't merge human trust that quickly. Marcus studied her. You've thought about this extensively. I've seen it fail. My father's business partner acquired 3 companies before destroying ours. Every acquisition struggled because he treated people like assets on a spreadsheet. Her voice carried old pain. People aren't numbers. They're the actual business. Your father's partner, Marcus said carefully. Thomas Castellano. Elena's eyes widened. How did you know that? I pay attention, Marcus said softly. And I'm sorry for what happened to your family. She set down her coffee cup, walls rising. I don't need pity. That's not what I'm offering. Marcus stepped closer. The kitchen suddenly felt smaller, more intimate. I'm offering respect. What Castellano did was criminal. What you've survived is remarkable. Elena's breath caught. No one had said that to her. Ever. They'd pitted her, dismissed her, or ignored her. But Marcus saw her struggle as strength, not weakness. Why do you care? She whispered. Because excellence recognizes excellence. His voice was low and tense. And you, Elena Rodriguez, are excellent. The air between them charged with something unspoken. Elena felt it, the magnetic pull toward this man who asked real questions and listened to her answers like they mattered. I should finish my shift, she said, but didn't move. You should, Marcus agreed, also not moving. They stood there, two people from different worlds, separated by nothing but air and circumstances, and the truth Marcus wasn't yet ready to reveal. Finally, Elena stepped back, breaking the spell. Good night, Marcus. Good night, Elena. She left the kitchen, her heart racing in a way that had nothing to do with exertion. Marcus remained, staring at the coffee she'd left behind. David appeared in the doorway. You're falling for her, David observed. I'm evaluating her, Marcus corrected. Those aren't mutually exclusive anymore. Marcus didn't deny it. Over 2 weeks, Elena had exceeded every expectation. She was brilliant, principled, resilient. She saw solutions others missed. She led without authority. He'd watched her help other cleaning staff, organizing their routes for efficiency, defending a younger worker from a rude security guard. But more than that, she made him think differently. Her questions challenged his assumptions. Her insights refined his strategies. She'd become his most valuable consultant without knowing it. And yes, he was attracted to her mind first, then to everything else, the way she moved with unconscious grace despite exhaustion, the way her eyes lit up when discussing business, the way she maintained dignity in circumstances that would have broken most people. When are you going to tell her? David asked. Soon. Marcus looked at the notepad, full of her handwriting. I need to be certain first. Certain of what? You already know she's qualified. I need to be certain she'll say yes for the right reasons. Not gratitude, not desperation, but because she recognizes her own worth. David nodded slowly. That's why you haven't told her who you are. Exactly. If Elena knows I'm the CEO, everything changes. She'll second-guess herself. Wonder if I'm offering charity. I need her to see herself the way I see her before revealing the opportunity. That's manipulative. That's strategic, Marcus corrected. I'm creating conditions for her success. When I offer her this position, she needs to believe she earned it, because she will have. The next night, Marcus left the most challenging test yet. A complete business case study requiring analysis of leadership, ethics, and innovation. It was the same case study given to executive candidates. At 4 a.m., he returned to find Elena's response. 15 pages. Handwritten. Brilliant. She hadn't just solved the problem. She'd identified problems within the problem. She'd created implementation frameworks with built-in flexibility. She'd anticipated resistance and designed around it. Marcus sat alone in the empty office, reading her analysis 3 times. David was right. He was falling for her. But more importantly, he'd found what he'd been searching for. Elena Rodriguez wasn't just qualified to be CEO. She was the only person qualified. Now he just had to convince her of that. Elena was polishing the executive conference table when she heard the door lock click behind her. She turned. Marcus stood there, but he looked different. He wore a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than her annual salary. His usual casual demeanor had shifted into something commanding, authoritative. We need to talk, he said. Elena's instincts prickled. About what? About who I really am. Her heart began to race. What does that mean? Marcus walked to the head of the conference table, his hand resting on the leather chair. My full name is Marcus Donovan. I own this building. I own this company. I'm the CEO of Donovan Tech. The floor seemed to tilt beneath Elena's feet. She gripped the cleaning cart for stability. What? For the past 3 weeks, I've been observing you, testing you, evaluating your strategic thinking, your problem-solving, your leadership qualities. He pulled a folder from inside his jacket. Every business scenario I gave you is real. Every conversation we had was an interview. Elena's shock crystallized into fury. You've been lying to me. I've been evaluating you without the artificial constraints of a formal interview process. You've been playing games with me while I scrubbed your floors. Her voice rose, echoing in the empty room. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? Elena, don't. She held up her hand, trembling with rage and something worse, betrayal. I trusted you. I shared things with you I haven't told anyone. And the whole time you were what? Testing me like some kind of lab rat. No. Marcus's voice was firm. He moved toward her, but she stepped back. I was looking for something every traditional interview process fails to reveal: authentic character. Real intelligence applied without performance pressure. Leadership that emerges naturally, not when prompted. So you lied. I observed. There's a difference. Not to me. Elena's eyes burned with unshed tears. She refused to let them fall. I opened up to you. I showed you parts of myself I keep hidden because you seem to actually see me. But I was just another business case study to you. That's not true. Marcus's control was slipping. His voice roughened with emotion. Yes, I started observing you professionally. But Elena, somewhere in the past 3 weeks, this became personal. The way you think, the way you analyze problems, your integrity, I've never met anyone like you. Because you've never bothered to look at people who clean your offices. The accusation landed hard. Marcus absorbed it without deflection. You're right, he said quietly. I've been surrounded by privilege so long I forgot what it obscures. But you reminded me. Every night, you showed up with dignity and excellence no one required. You solved problems you weren't asked to solve. You saw opportunities everyone else missed. You did all of that while the world treated you as invisible. He opened the folder, placing it on the table between them. This is a formal offer. CEO position for our new AI ethics division. $500,000 annual salary. Full benefits, including comprehensive medical coverage for dependents. Equity stake in the company. And a personal commitment from me that your father's name will be cleared. Thomas Castellano confessed to everything last month. Your father was innocent, and I have the documentation to prove it publicly. Elena stared at the folder like it was a snake. You think you can buy me? I think you earned this. Every single element of it. Based on what? Watching me while lying about who you were. Based on 3 weeks of the most rigorous evaluation process I've ever conducted. Marcus's voice intensified with conviction. Do you know how many CEO candidates I've interviewed in the past year? 43. Every single one came prepared with rehearsed answers and calculated charm. But you, Elena, you showed me raw excellence. Unpolished, authentic, brilliant excellence. Elena's anger warred with something else, a desperate, terrifying hope. Why should I believe anything you say? Because I'm not asking you to trust my words. I'm asking you to trust yourself. You know what you're capable of. You've always known. This position doesn't give you capability. It gives you the platform you deserve. She looked at the folder. Everything she'd lost was being offered back to her. Her career, her dignity, her father's name, her mother's health. But the cost felt impossibly high. If I accept this, she said slowly, I'll always wonder if I earned it or if you felt guilty. Then don't accept it because I offered it. Marcus pulled out a chair. Sit. Review the business case for the AI ethics division. I'll leave you alone. If you can create a better strategic framework than what my executive team developed over 6 months, the position is yours based purely on merit. Elena hesitated. This was manipulation again. He was giving her a chance to prove herself on her terms. But he was also respecting her need for validation. She sat. Marcus placed a tablet in front of her. Everything you need is here. You have until morning. If your strategy exceeds my team's work, you get the position. If it doesn't, we part ways, and I'll write you a recommendation for any company you choose. And if I walk out right now, then I'll respect your decision and apologize for the deception. His eyes held hers. But Elena, you deserve this opportunity. Not because I'm offering it, because you're extraordinary. He walked to the door, paused, and turned back. For what it's worth, paying for my coffee that morning wasn't a test. I really did forget my wallet. Your kindness was real. My gratitude was real. And everything I feel for you now. He stopped, shaking his head. That's real too. Then he left, closing the door softly behind him. Elena sat alone in the executive conference room, staring at the tablet and the folder containing an offer that would change her life. Her hand shook as she opened the file. This was her moment, her chance to reclaim everything. But was she brave enough to reach for it? Elena worked through the night, not cleaning, strategizing. The AI ethics division case was complex. Donovan Tech wanted to lead the industry in responsible artificial intelligence development, but the existing framework was reactive, compliance-focused, and ultimately toothless. She read the executive team's proposal. It was good, thorough, safe, and completely wrong. At 6 a.m., Elena finished her analysis. Her hands cramped from writing longhand. The tablet felt too impersonal for something this important. She'd created a 32-page strategic framework that reimagined AI ethics, not as compliance, but as competitive advantage. She left it on the conference table and went home. Her mother was awake when Elena entered, sitting in her worn recliner with a blanket across her lap. "You look different," Maria said immediately. Elena collapsed on the sofa. Everything changed last night. She told her mother everything. About Marcus, the deception, the offer, the impossible decision weighing on her chest like a stone. Maria listened without interruption. When Elena finished, her mother was quiet for a long time. "Mija, what are you afraid of? That I'll accept and fail. That I'll prove everyone right. That I'm not good enough. That I was only Richard Rodriguez's daughter, never my own person." Or, her mother prompted gently. Or that I'll succeed and realize I didn't need his help. That I could have done this on my own if I'd just been brave enough. And what scares you more? Elena closed her eyes. The truth crystallized with painful clarity. That I'll succeed, because then I have no more excuses. No more hiding. I have to be fully myself again. Maria reached over, taking her daughter's hand. When your father died, you stopped being Elena. You became the woman who takes care of others. The woman who survives. But survival isn't living, baby. It's waiting. Mama, you're 28 years old with an extraordinary mind. You paid for that man's coffee with money you needed because kindness mattered more than survival. That's who you are, someone who chooses grace over fear. Maria squeezed her hand. This opportunity isn't about him. It's about you deciding you deserve to stop hiding. Elena felt tears finally spill over. What if I fail? Then you fail spectacularly, with dignity and courage. But at least you tried. That's more than most people can say. Her mother's eyes gleamed with fierce pride. Your father would want this for you. He'd want you to reclaim everything that was stolen. Not for revenge, but because you earned it. Elena wiped her eyes, something shifting deep in her core. Her mother was right. This wasn't about Marcus Donovan or his guilt or his games. This was about Elena Rodriguez deciding she was worth the risk. She looked at the contract Marcus had left. $500,000. Medical coverage. Her father's name cleared. But more than that, a chance to be herself again. She picked up her phone with shaking hands and dialed the number on Marcus's business card. He answered immediately. "Elena, I reviewed the case study," she said, voice steady despite her racing heart. "Your team's framework is inadequate. It treats AI ethics as a defensive measure instead of a transformative opportunity. I have a better approach. I'm listening, not over the phone, and not as a supplicant." She took a breath. "If you want my strategy, we negotiate terms. As equals." There was a pause. Then Marcus's voice came through, and she could hear the smile in it. "Name your terms. First, I want autonomy. I build this division my way, without board interference for the first year. Second, I want my title to reflect reality, not CEO of a subsidiary, but Chief Ethics Officer reporting directly to you. Third, I want you to publicly clear my father's name within 30 days, not as a favor, but as justice." Done, done, and done, Marcus said immediately. Anything else? Elena glanced at her mother, who nodded encouragingly. Yes. No more games. No more tests. If we're going to work together, we deal with each other honestly. I need to know I can trust you. You can, Marcus said quietly. I give you my word, Elena. No more deception. Only truth. She closed her eyes. This was it. The moment she stopped running from her own potential. Then I accept your offer. I'll start Monday. Thank you, Marcus said, and the relief in his voice was palpable. You won't regret this. I know, Elena replied, because I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for me. After she hung up, Maria pulled her into a fierce embrace. That's my girl. Elena held her mother, feeling something she hadn't felt in 2 years. Hope. Not the fragile, desperate hope of survival, but the strong, defiant hope of someone ready to reclaim her life. Monday morning, Elena stood outside Donovan Tech Tower wearing a tailored navy suit she'd bought over the weekend. It wasn't expensive, she'd found at a discount store, but it was professional, elegant, and most importantly, it was hers. Not borrowed, not given, earned. She took a deep breath and walked through the door she'd cleaned hundreds of times. But this time, she walked through the main entrance. As an executive, the receptionist looked up. May I help you? Elena Rodriguez. I have a meeting with Marcus Donovan. The woman's eyes widened slightly. Of course, Ms. Rodriguez. Top floor. Someone will escort you. Within minutes, Elena was riding the executive elevator, the one she'd never been allowed to use before. The doors opened to a floor of floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, and people in expensive suits moving with purpose. David Chun waited at the elevator. Ms. Rodriguez, welcome. I'm David Chun, Mr. Donovan's assistant. He's waiting in the main conference room. Elena followed him, aware of every eye tracking her movement. Whispers followed in her wake. That's the janitor. Can't believe Marcus actually hired her. This won't last a month. Elena kept her chin up, refusing to let their doubts touch her. The conference room held 12 people. Marcus sat at the head of the table in an immaculate black suit, his expression neutral, but his eyes warm when they met hers. Elena, thank you for joining us. He gestured to an empty chair. Please sit. Elena took her seat, directly across from a striking woman in her mid-30s with sharp features and calculating eyes. Her nameplate read, Victoria Chun, CFO. Shall we begin? Marcus said. This is Elena Rodriguez, our new Chief Ethics Officer. She'll be leading the AI Ethics Division. Elena, this is the Executive Board. He made introductions. Each executive nodded politely, but Elena could read the skepticism in their faces. Victoria spoke first, her voice silk over steel. Ms. Rodriguez, we're all very curious about your background. I understand you were working in facility maintenance here. Elena said calmly. I was also analyzing your business strategies, identifying inefficiencies, and solving problems your executives left on whiteboards. A ripple of surprise moved through the room. Enterprising, Victoria said with a thin smile. Tell me, what qualifies you to lead a division in a company worth $10 billion? Elena recognized the attack. Victoria wanted her to defend her credentials, to sound defensive or desperate. Instead, Elena smiled. My MBA from Stanford. My 3 years running strategic planning for Rodriguez Imports before its collapse. My 2 years observing this company from a unique vantage point where I saw the gap between your stated values and your actual practices. And my ability to see what you can't because you're too comfortable in your positions to notice what's broken. The room went silent. Marcus leaned back, the ghost of a smile on his lips. That's a bold claim, another executive said. What exactly have we missed? Elena pulled out her tablet, the one Marcus had provided. Let's start with your diversity initiative. You spent $2 million last year on recruitment programs targeting underrepresented communities. Impressive numbers. But your retention rate for those hires is 38% after 1 year. Industry average is 65%. You're hiring for optics and failing to create inclusive culture. That's not diversity. That's expensive theater. She clicked to another slide. Your sustainability program? You report carbon neutrality, but that's because you offset with credits, not actual emission reduction. Your supply chain still relies on 3 manufacturers with documented environmental violations. If that becomes public, your entire brand promise collapses. Another slide. Your AI development team? 92% male, 87% from identical socioeconomic backgrounds. You're building artificial intelligence with very narrow intelligence. The result will be systems that work beautifully for people exactly like your developers and fail everyone else. Victoria's face had gone rigid. You're criticizing operations you know nothing about. I know everything about them, Elena interrupted smoothly. Because for 2 years, I emptied your trash, cleaned your offices, and read every document you carelessly left visible. I saw the sexual harassment complaints that were settled quietly. I saw the patent disputes you buried in NDAs. I saw the innovation proposals from junior staff that your executives ignored because they came from the wrong people. She stood, commanding the room. You hired me to lead AI ethics. But ethics isn't a department, it's a culture. And your culture is broken. Not because you're malicious, but because you've stopped seeing what's actually happening. You need someone who still remembers what it's like to be invisible. The silence was absolute. Marcus stood. Thank you, Elena. That was exactly the assessment I needed this board to hear. He looked at his executives. Every issue she identified is documented in her full report, which you'll all receive this afternoon. Elena has 90 days to begin restructuring our approach to ethics, inclusion, and authentic innovation. She has my full support. Any questions? Victoria's voice was ice. Just one. What happens if she fails? Marcus's eyes were steady on his CFO. The same thing that happens when any executive fails. She'll face consequences. But I don't hire people I expect to fail. I hire people who see solutions others miss. He turned to Elena. Your office is ready. David will help you get settled. As the meeting broke up, Victoria approached Elena. Up close, her smile was predatory. Impressive performance, she said quietly. But speeches don't build companies. Results do. And when you fail, and you will, I'll be there to pick up the pieces. Elena met her gaze without flinching. Then I suppose I'll have to make sure I don't fail. Victoria's smile sharpened. We'll see. As she walked away, Elena felt a chill. She'd made an enemy. A powerful, connected, dangerous enemy. But she'd also made a statement. Elena Rodriguez wasn't someone to underestimate anymore. Elena had been chief ethics officer for 3 weeks when the scandal broke. She was reviewing compliance reports in her new office, sleek, modern, with windows overlooking the city, when David burst in without knocking. Have you seen the news? His face was pale. Elena pulled up the headlines on her screen. Her stomach dropped. From janitor to executive. Donovan Tech's questionable hiring practice. Billionaire's charity case or calculated PR stunt. Elena Rodriguez, the woman who cleaned her way to the top. Every major business publication had the story. Photos of her in her janitor uniform were placed next to her executive headshot. The articles dissected her past, her father's scandal, her mother's illness, her years of poverty. They questioned her qualifications, suggested nepotism, implied she was Marcus's charity project or worse. One tabloid headline made her blood run cold. CEO's secret relationship with former cleaning staff? Her phone exploded with messages. Journalists requesting comment. Former colleagues from her father's company expressing shock. And worst of all, her mother calling, her voice tight with worry. Mija, what's happening? Someone leaked my background to the press, Elena said, fighting to keep her voice steady. I need to call you back, Mama. She ended the call and stared at the articles. Every humiliating detail of her life was on display for the world to judge. There was a sharp knock on her door. Victoria Chen entered without waiting for permission, her expression a perfect mask of concern. Elena, I just saw the news. This is terrible. Her voice dripped with false sympathy. The board is meeting in an hour. They'll want your response. Elena stood, forcing herself to meet Victoria's eyes. She saw the truth there, the satisfaction barely concealed behind professional concern. You did this, Elena said quietly. Victoria's smile was razor thin. I don't know what you mean, but I did warn you that results matter more than speeches. The board doesn't appreciate being embarrassed by questionable hiring decisions. Get out of my office. It won't be your office much longer, Victoria replied, turning to leave. The board members are already asking for your resignation. By tomorrow, you'll be exactly what you were before, invisible. After she left, Elena sat down, her hands shaking. Everything she'd worked for was collapsing. The media had turned her redemption story into a scandal. The board would force her out to protect the company's reputation. She'd been right to be afraid. She wasn't strong enough for this world after all. Her phone rang. Marcus, don't answer calls from any journalists, he said immediately. Don't make any statements. I'm handling this. Marcus, the board. The board answers to me, and I'm about to make something very clear to them and everyone else. What are you going to do? What I should have done from the beginning. Tell the truth. 30 minutes later, Marcus called an emergency press conference in Donovan Tech's main lobby. Elena watched on the screen in her office as reporters crowded around him. Marcus stood at the podium, commanding and furious. I've seen the articles published today about Elena Rodriguez. Every single one of them is a deliberate distortion designed to humiliate a brilliant executive and protect egos she's threatened. So let me be absolutely clear about the facts. He paused, his eyes scanning the crowd of journalists. 3 months ago, I implemented an unconventional evaluation process because traditional hiring had failed repeatedly. I needed someone authentic, principled, and courageous. Elena Rodriguez demonstrated all 3 qualities while working a job she was vastly overqualified for. She analyzed complex business problems without being asked. She identified strategic failures our executive team missed. She showed more leadership in a janitor uniform than most executives show in corner offices. Marcus's voice intensified. You want to know why I hired her? Because she paid for a stranger's coffee with money she desperately needed. Because she maintained dignity when life had given her every reason to surrender. Because she sees what others miss and has the courage to speak truth to power. He pulled out a document. This is her strategic framework for our AI ethics division. It's better than anything our executive team produced in 6 months. This is her analysis of our diversity failures, accurate, thorough, and damning. This is her proposal for authentic innovation culture, revolutionary and actionable. Marcus looked directly into the cameras. Elena Rodriguez earned her position through merit. Anyone who says otherwise is either ignorant or threatened by competence they don't possess. And to be clear, she doesn't report to the board. She reports to me. Her position is secure because she's exceptional at it. A reporter called out, "What about allegations of a personal relationship between you two?" Marcus's expression hardened. My personal feelings are irrelevant to Ms. Rodriguez's qualifications. But since you've asked, yes, I admire her greatly. I admire her intelligence, her integrity, and her strength. Anyone who has survived what she has survived and maintained grace deserves admiration. If that makes me biased, so be it. I'd rather be biased toward excellence than comfort. He stepped away from the podium without taking further questions. Elena watched the screen, tears streaming down her face. Marcus had just publicly defended her, exposing himself to criticism and mockery. He'd made himself vulnerable for her. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. My office. Now. She wiped her eyes, straightened her suit, and walked through corridors filled with staring employees. Some looked sympathetic. Others looked speculative. She kept moving until she reached the executive floor. Marcus's office was empty except for him. He stood by the window, his back to her, tension visible in his shoulders. You shouldn't have done that, Elena said softly as he turned. His eyes were dark with emotion. They attacked you. Did you expect me to stay silent? They attacked your judgment, your credibility. I'm not worth that cost. Marcus crossed the distance between them in 3 strides. Don't ever say that again. His intensity took her breath away. They stood inches apart, the air crackling with everything unspoken between them for weeks. Elena, I've built a $10 billion company by being strategic, calculated, always 3 steps ahead. But with you, he ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. With you, I don't know how to be strategic. I just know I can't stand watching them try to destroy you. Why? She whispered. Why does it matter so much? Because somewhere between coffee shops and late-night business discussions, you became the most important person in my world. And I don't know when it happened or how to make it professional again. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. Marcus, we can't, I know. Power dynamics. Professional boundaries. All the reasons this is complicated. His voice dropped. But that doesn't change what I feel. She should step back. Should maintain distance. Should remember all the reasons this was impossible. Instead, she reached up and touched his face. I feel it too, she admitted. And it terrifies me. Marcus's hand covered hers, his thumb stroking her wrist. What are we going to do about it? I don't know. But not today. Today we have to focus on surviving Victoria and the board. He nodded, but didn't release her hand. For the record, you're worth every cost, every risk, every complication. Elena pulled away gently, needing space to think clearly. Let's deal with the crisis first. Then we'll figure out the rest. But as she left his office, she knew something fundamental had shifted between them. The question was whether they'd survive the fallout. The board meeting was scheduled for 4 p.m. Elena spent the day preparing not a defense, but an offense. If Victoria wanted war, Elena would give her one. She arrived at the boardroom 10 minutes early. Victoria was already there, sitting in Elena's usual seat, a deliberate power play. The other board members filed in, their expressions ranging from sympathetic to hostile. Marcus entered last, his face unreadable. Board Chairman Richard Blackwell called the meeting to order. We're here to discuss the recent media attention and determine appropriate action. Ms. Rodriguez, would you like to address the board? Elena stood, tablet in hand. I'd like to present my first quarterly report. Victoria laughed. Elena, the board wants to discuss your position, not your projects. My position is Chief Ethics Officer. So let me be ethical. Elena connected her tablet to the conference room display. For 3 weeks, I've been reviewing Donovan Tech's operations with particular focus on financial integrity. Victoria's smile faltered slightly. I discovered some interesting patterns. Over the past 18 months, approximately $3.7 million in company funds have been redirected through complex vendor relationships. The transactions were expertly hidden in legitimate operating expenses, consulting fees, software licenses, facility upgrades. Elena clicked to the next slide, showing a web of shell companies. These vendors all trace back to the same ownership structure, and that structure connects to an offshore account controlled by. She paused, looking directly at Victoria. CFO Victoria Chun. The room erupted. Victoria shot to her feet. This is absurd. You're fabricating evidence to distract from your own inadequacy. I have documentation, Elena said calmly. She clicked again. Bank statements appeared on screen. Wire transfers. Emails with Victoria's signature authorizing payments to fraudulent vendors. I've already shared everything with our legal team, and the SEC investigators Marcus contacted this morning. Victoria's face drained of color. She looked at Marcus, who sat motionless, his expression carved from stone. Marcus, you can't believe this. I've seen the evidence, Marcus said quietly. All of it. The investigators confirmed it's legitimate. She's framing me. She's the janitor who somehow became an executive. Clearly she's capable of fraud. Enough, Blackwell interrupted. Victoria, until this investigation is complete, you're suspended without pay. Security will escort you from the building. Elena clicked to her final slide. While reviewing Victoria's finances, I also discovered she was the source of the media leaks about my background. She paid a journalist $50,000 to run the story. I have the transaction records and email communications. Victoria's eyes flashed with pure hatred. You little. Ms. Chun, Blackwell said coldly. Leave. Now. Security entered the boardroom. As they approached, Victoria grabbed her briefcase and turned to Elena. You think you've won? You're nothing. You'll always be nothing. Just a janitor playing dress-up in an office you don't deserve. Elena met her gaze steadily. I was a janitor who saw what you didn't think anyone was watching. That's not nothing. That's exactly why I'm still here and you're not. Victoria was escorted out, her protests echoing down the hallway. The boardroom was silent for a long moment. Finally, Blackwell spoke. Ms. Rodriguez, on behalf of the board, I apologize. Your work uncovering this fraud has saved this company from significant legal and financial exposure. I was doing my job, Elena said simply. Ethics means everyone is accountable, even executives. Another board member spoke up. Your quarterly report. Do you have a rest of it? Elena smiled and clicked to the next slide. Of course. For the next hour, she presented her comprehensive ethics framework. Not just policies, but culture transformation. She'd identified 17 operational areas requiring reform and created actionable implementation plans for each. The board asked sharp questions. Elena answered every one with precision and confidence. When she finished, Blackwell nodded slowly. This is the most thorough ethics framework I've seen in 30 years of corporate governance. Well done, Ms. Rodriguez. After the meeting, Marcus caught up with Elena in the hallway. You knew about Victoria's embezzlement during the press conference, he said. I suspected. I spent last night confirming it. And you didn't tell me? Elena stopped walking and faced him. Because I needed to handle this myself, not have you rescue me. I needed the board to see that I earned this position through capability, not connections. Marcus's expression softened with something close to awe. You magnificent, brilliant woman. I learned from watching you, Elena said. Strategic thinking, calculated moves, always 3 steps ahead. I've created a monster, he murmured, but he was smiling. No, Elena corrected. You reminded me who I always was. That evening, the company released a statement. Victoria Chun had been terminated for financial misconduct. The media narrative shifted immediately from questioning Elena's qualifications to praising her investigative work. By morning, the headlines read, New ethics chief uncovers major fraud at Donovan Tech, and Elena Rodriguez. From invisible to indispensable. Elena read them while drinking coffee in her office, the office that was definitely hers now. No question, no doubt, she'd won. But more importantly, she'd proven to herself that she belonged in this world. Not because Marcus believed in her, but because she was actually exceptional at what she did. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. So proud of you, Mija. Your father would be too. Elena smiled, tears blurring her vision. She'd reclaimed her name, her dignity, her future. Now, she just had to decide what to do about her heart. 6 months later, Elena stood in the boardroom presenting her biannual ethics report. The AI ethics division had become Donovan Tech's most celebrated innovation. Industry publications called it revolutionary. Competitors scrambled to replicate it. Elena had become one of the most respected executives in the tech industry. But something was missing. She finished her presentation to applause. The board praised her work. Blackwell announced her division's budget was being tripled. Everything was perfect professionally. Yet Elena felt hollow. She knew why, and so did everyone else who worked on the executive floor. For 6 months, she and Marcus had maintained perfect professional boundaries. They were cordial in meetings, collaborative on projects, friendly but distant, and it was killing both of them. That evening, Elena was working late when Marcus knocked on her open door. Everyone else has gone home, he said. You should too. Just finishing this proposal, Elena replied, not looking up from her screen. Marcus entered, closing the door behind him. Elena, we need to talk. She finally met his eyes. About what? About the fact that we've been avoiding each other for 6 months. About the fact that every time I see you in a meeting, I have to remind myself not to stare. About the fact that this professional distance we're maintaining is professional torture. Elena's heart raced. Marcus, I stepped back from daily operations last month. David is handling most executive decisions. I'm focusing on long-term strategy and investment. He moved closer to her desk. There's no power dynamic anymore. You report to the board now, not to me. We're equals. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted you to have time to settle into your role without complication. I wanted you to be certain that everything you've achieved was purely your own. Marcus leaned against her desk. But Elena, I can't keep pretending I don't feel what I feel. I'm in love with you. I have been since you bought my coffee with money you needed for bus fare. Elena stood, her legs unsteady. You can't just say that. Why not? It's true. You're the most brilliant, courageous, infuriating woman I've ever met. You challenge me. You make me think differently. You make me want to be better. His voice roughened with emotion. And every day, I have to watch you walk past my office and pretend my entire world doesn't revolve around you. Marcus, I'm scared, Elena whispered. Everything I have now, this position, this life, it's still so new. What if we cross this line and it ruins everything? Or what if we cross this line and it makes everything better? He reached out, his fingers brushing her cheek. Elena, I'm not asking you to risk your career. I'm asking you to risk your heart with someone who already gave you his. She closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. I've been in love with you since you defended me to the press. Since you stood there and risked everything for me. I was just too afraid to admit it. And now, Elena opened her eyes, meeting his gaze with fierce certainty. Now I'm tired of being afraid. Marcus pulled her into his arms. Their kiss was 6 months of suppressed desire, unspoken feelings, and profound connection finally released. It was desperate and tender and absolutely right. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. I want to do this properly, he said. Dinner, dating, meeting your mother officially, building something real. Elena laughed softly. We've done everything backwards. Why start being conventional now? Because you deserve conventional. You deserve romance and courtship and all the normal relationship things we skipped. She pulled back to look at him. Marcus, nothing about us has ever been normal. I was your janitor. You were my secret interviewer. I fell in love with you while cleaning your offices, and you fell in love with me while testing my business acumen. We don't do normal. He smiled. Fair point. So what do? We figure it out as we go. Together. As equals. As partners. In every way, Elena confirmed. Marcus kissed her again, and this time there was no hesitation, no fear, no professional boundaries. Just two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances and refused to let anything, not scandal, not power dynamics, not fear, keep them apart. Later, as they left the building together, Marcus took her hand. The security guard at the front desk, the same one who used to ignore Elena when she was cleaning, smiled at them warmly. Good night, Ms. Rodriguez. Mr. Donovan. Elena returned the smile, then looked at Marcus as they walked into the city night. Do you know what the strangest part of all this is? She asked. I'm happier now than I ever was when my family had money and status. Because everything I have now, the position, the respect I earned it. It's real. Marcus squeezed her hand. You know what the strangest part is for me? Tell me. I've spent my life acquiring things, companies, properties, success. But the most valuable thing I ever found was someone I wasn't even looking for. Someone who was right in front of me the whole time. Invisible until I learned to actually see. Elena stopped walking and kissed him in the middle of the sidewalk, not caring who saw. Take me home, she whispered against his lips. Yours or mine? She smiled. Ours. Eventually. Marcus laughed, pulling her close. I like the sound of that. They hailed a cab, and as the city lights blurred past the windows, Elena realized something profound. She'd spent 2 years believing she'd lost everything. But losing everything had been the only way to find what truly mattered. Not money, not status, not her father's legacy, but herself, and the man who'd seen her when everyone else looked away. 1 year later, Elena stood in front of the mirror in a private room at the Carlisle Hotel, adjusting her wedding dress. It was elegant but simple, ivory silk with delicate lace sleeves. She'd chosen herself, paid for it herself, and felt absolutely beautiful. Her mother sat behind her, healthy and radiant after a year of proper medical treatment. The cancer was in remission. Maria's eyes shone with tears and pride. You look like a queen, Mija. I look like me, Elena corrected softly. Finally, there was a knock on the door. David Chun entered with a manila envelope. This just came through, he said, handing it to Elena. I thought you'd want to see it before the ceremony. Elena opened it. Inside was a legal document stamped with official seals. In the matter of Richard Rodriguez, full exoneration. Thomas Castellano's confession had finally worked through the legal system. Every fraud charge against her father was officially dismissed. His name was cleared, his reputation restored. Elena's hands trembled as she read the document. He's innocent, legally, officially, permanently. Maria stood and embraced her daughter. He always was, baby. The world just needed time to catch up to the truth. I wish he could be here, Elena whispered. He is, her mother said firmly. He's watching you marry a good man. He's watching you lead a company with integrity. He's watching you become everything he raised you to be. That's all he ever wanted. David cleared his throat. The guests are ready. Marcus is extremely nervous, which is both amusing and touching. Elena laughed, wiping her eyes carefully to preserve her makeup. Let's not keep him waiting. The ceremony was intimate, 50 people in a garden overlooking the city. White flowers, string quartet, late afternoon sun casting golden light over everything. As Elena walked down the aisle, she saw familiar faces. David, board members, her team from the ethics division, people who'd become friends and colleagues. And at the end of the aisle, Marcus waited. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, but his eyes were what captured her. They held everything: love, pride, joy, promise. When Elena reached him, he took her hands and whispered, "You're breathtaking." "You're not bad yourself," she whispered back. The ceremony was beautiful and brief. They'd written their own vows. Marcus spoke first. "Elena, you taught me that the most valuable things in life are the ones you almost miss. A brilliant woman in a janitor uniform. Kindness when you have nothing. Courage when everything's against you. I promise to never stop seeing you, not just looking but truly seeing. I promise to challenge you, support you, and love you through every victory and every struggle. You made me a better man. I'll spend my life trying to deserve you." Elena's voice was steady despite the emotion tightening her throat. "Marcus, you saw me when I was invisible. You believed in me when I'd stopped believing in myself. But more than that, you stepped back and let me prove my own worth. That's the greatest gift anyone's ever given me. I promise to build a life with you based on equality, honesty, and partnership. I promise to challenge you right back. And I promise to love you, not for saving me, but for reminding me I could save myself." They exchanged rings. The officiant declared them married. Marcus kissed her while their guests cheered. At the reception, Elena gave a short speech. "A year ago, I was cleaning buildings and wondering if I'd ever be anything more than invisible. Today, I'm leading an ethics division that's changing our industry. I'm married to my best friend. My mother is healthy. My father's name is cleared." She paused, looking around at the people who'd become her community. "I learned something through all of this. Life doesn't end when you lose everything. Sometimes, losing everything is how you discover what you're actually made of." 6 months after the wedding, Elena discovered she was pregnant, with twins. Marcus cried when she told him. They stood in their home, a brownstone they'd bought together, holding the ultrasound image and marveling at the 2 tiny heartbeats visible on the screen. "2 babies," Marcus whispered in awe. "2 brilliant, complicated, extraordinary babies," Elena corrected, "just like their parents." He pulled her close, his hand resting on her still flat stomach. "Do you ever think about that morning in the coffee shop?" "Every day," Elena smiled. "I think about how $5 changed my entire life. How one small act of kindness created a connection that led to everything else. How the worst period of my life was actually preparing me for the best." What would you tell that version of yourself if you could? I'd tell her that being invisible is temporary. That dignity isn't defined by job titles. That the people who see your value in your darkest moments are the ones worth keeping. She looked up at him, and I'd tell her that the man whose coffee she bought with her last $5 would become her entire world. Marcus kissed her forehead. I'd tell my younger self to forget his wallet more often. Elena laughed, and I'd tell mine to always help strangers. You never know which one will change your life. 9 months later, Elena gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. They named them Richard and Maria, honoring the people who'd shaped them. Elena took maternity leave, but continued consulting on ethics frameworks. She'd become the most sought-after expert in her field. Companies worldwide requested her guidance. But her proudest achievement wasn't professional success. It was sitting in a rocking chair at 3 a.m., feeding her daughter while Marcus fed their son, both of them exhausted and deliriously happy. "We did it," Marcus murmured across the nursery. "Did what?" "Built something real. Something that matters more than companies or money or success." Elena looked at her children, at the family they'd created from ashes and adversity, and smiled. "We built a life," she said softly. "Not the one I planned. Something better." Years later, when Elena's twins asked how their parents met, she told them the truth. "Your father and I met when I had nothing and he had everything. But we both learned that having nothing teaches you what matters. And what matters is character, kindness, and courage. Everything else is just details." "And coffee," Marcus added from across the room. "Character, kindness, courage, and good coffee." Elena laughed, pulling her children close. "And coffee." She'd started as a janitor, become a CEO, lost everything, and gained more than she'd ever dreamed possible. But the most important transformation wasn't external. It was learning that her worth had never been tied to her circumstances. It had always been there, waiting for someone to see it. And once she'd seen it herself, nothing could make her invisible again.